Hi, and welcome to week 9 of the Alabama Weekly. During this week, we will discuss Alabama and the Reconstruction after the Civil War. Some of the things that Lincoln wanted to include in his Reconstruction plan were having Southern states take an oath of loyalty, having some high ranking Confederate people not being allowed to take this oath, ratifying the 13th Amendment, which ended slavery, and each state had to repeal the secession, which means that they left the Union so that they would all be part of the Union. However, Lincoln was assassinated before this was fully carried out. We had the Freedmen's Bureau at this time, where there were many laws and that were passed to limit freedoms to African Americans, and the former slaves were called freedmen, hence the Freedmen's Bureau. And the government set up this agency to help out these people who had been formerly slaves. And they gave them foods, they brought in teachers, they found them jobs, helped to get people back on their feet. Andrew Johnson became president after Lincoln was assassinated. He was his successor, and he followed Lincoln's plan to bring the South back into the Union. He was a Republican, so the Congress was not really excited about it, but they wanted to make sure that citizenship was given to freed slaves, and this group was called the Radical Republicans. And afterward, they went ahead and with many of the Reconstruction plans. Some of the things to come out of Reconstruction, which is rebuilding after the Civil War, included a new government for Alabama. As they were becoming part of the Union, they had to start and form a new government. And they did this with a governor, Lewis Parsons, and he called for a constitutional convention where voters were then electing who would be representatives, and they agreed to end slavery. Later, the 13th Amendment, which is one of the Reconstruction amendments, ended slavery. This was followed by the 14th Amendment that granted citizenship, and the 15th Amendment that allowed people to vote. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments are known as the Reconstruction Amendments. And Maria Fearing was born to slave parents, but she used her teaching skills to help out throughout Alabama. She became very famous and became a missionary. And then finally, Alabama rejoined the Union. They had a new constitution, and they allowed blacks and whites to work together, and it allowed Alabama to become part of the United States again. Jeremiah Harrelson is another important man, and he served in the state legislature, and he was elected to one term of the House. Radicals didn't really like him because he didn't want to pay the South for damages to property, and he also wanted the former Confederates pardoned and federal troops taken out of Alabama, but he was instrumental in the government at this point in time.